All right, boys, in this episode, we talk about our advice from ZDog MD. We emailed him a couple days ago to ask for some advice. He responded, and we talk about it in this segment. If you want to follow him, his handles on most of his social media is just ZDog MD. And lastly, if you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe as it helps the channel grow.
This is our 12th episode. I'm Dennis.
And I'm Gage. And in today's episode, we got, I think might be my favorite one, at least, on paper, what we have to talk about. So, the people that have been listening, we've only been doing this for what, 2 months, maybe two and a half
Yeah,
months.
something like that. Yeah.
And when you see it, everybody tries to make their own podcast, and like, oh, you and I thought, oh, let's do it. What do we have to lose? But then you get into it, and you're like, you start running into obstacles and things that you just weren't prepared for. And so we kind of looked for other people that have been doing podcasts in general. And then we also looked at people that were in our lane, which is, if you just classify it as medical, not radiology, there's not too many of those. But if you just look at medical, and you were more familiar with this person than I was vaguely familiar, but you were like, you showed me, I think it was a couple months ago, you showed me one of his videos, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. He has the same vibe that I do, and towards medicine.
hmm
So I was like, I listened to some of his stuff, and eventually, I don't know what clicked, but I was like, man, we should email this guy and see if he has any kind of advice for us. So if you guys are familiar with medical podcasts, then he's one of the more popular. But his name is Z. He goes by Z Dog, but he's a hospitalist out of, I think, Stanford. But
Yeah,
he
yeah,
his
yeah.
yeah, and his content is very. He uses like humor and sarcasm to kind of shit on medicine, essentially, because he's very open about how medicine changed him and affected him. And I'm like, oh man, that's kind of what, at least the vibe that I'm going for, because we've mentioned several times that we don't really enjoy our jobs. So we're like, man, he kind of does what we do. We're like, man, what if he has any advice for us? So I said, what do we have to lose? And I was like, let's just email him.
Well, I think, and he has his Doc Vader thing, so he
Yeah,
kind of like spoofs different things.
yeah.
He's a really artsy guy. He does a lot of broken areas of medicine that he digs into and says like this should be fixed, this should be fixed, and he just goes at it. And so I really agree with like broken parts of medicine that need fixed. That so he kind of like resonated with us, I think.
hmm And he does it in a creative way. He's not just like outright just telling people what's wrong. It's like you said, the Doc Vader thing was,
hmm
it's a recurring character, so it's pretty interesting. But the bottom line is, I was like, let's just email him.
hmm
So I drafted up an email. I said, here's who we are. We're only 11 episodes deep. We don't have like the greatest gear. I was just very open and honest with him. And I made sure to mention that I was in radiology, because I know he's mentioned before that his wife is in radiology. And he mentioned, uh, I think she's a program director for radiology residency at Stanford. So I kind of threw a jab in there, like, because his personality is, he's very open and you can joke with him. I think I just sent a jab in the email that said radiology was better than medicine, and in his response, he kind of opened up with that his wife kind of jokes, that radiology is better than medicine with him. So I felt like that was a good start to the email, because he kind of showed that he's just like a
Better,
normal.
better than medicine, or better than being like a hospitalist, or
Yeah,
better than
sorry, I say medicine. I mean internal medicine. A
medicine.
hospitalist. Yeah. So yeah, I'm sure his mom or his wife does. I would if my spouse was in internal any other specialty. But so I kind of just emailed him and said, "Hey, here's our situation. I think you and I, our podcasts are similar, because we're kind of, medicine has kind of worn us out a little bit." He's like, and I was like, "Do you have any just basic advice
Right.
for us?" And I don't know what were your expectations? Did you think he would even respond?
I wasn't sure. I know you guys are seem to be cut from the same cloth. In
You mean
that
me and him, or just
you and
doctors in
him, yeah,
general?
you and him,
Yeah, yeah.
very very much so. And I had a feeling he may respond, just because I've seen him respond to other folks that I've watched on videos, and he actually
hmm
responded to a friend of mine who had made a video and like answered her question on his video. So I know he's very intertwined with his subscribers, and especially the people that followed him for a while. He answers questions, and he's in tune with that kind of thing. So I was like, okay, if anybody's gonna like, if we reach out to anybody, he might be a person that legit is gonna like give us good advice. And so
Mhm.
when you were like, I think we should do this, I was like, I think we got a shot here. And so even though us being as new as we are, I didn't think that after reading the email, I didn't think that we would have gotten the great
Yeah.
uh, stuff that we got. But
Yeah.
I'll let you kind of carve that out for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm the same. I honestly didn't know. I don't think a lot of these people will respond if we ever, I mean, because we have like a list of other people. We were like, oh man, we should just, it's just like a Hail Mary. We mentioned in the first episode of who we wanted on the podcast. Like if we emailed them, like Blink 182 or Post, like they're not going to respond. I kind of lumped, even though Z Dog's not as popular as them, I'm like, he's popular enough. I don't think he responds to people that are, I told him how many Instagram followers we had. We only have 11 episodes. I'm like, there's no way this man is going to waste his time. But
Right.
we wouldn't be talking about it if he didn't respond. So he did. He did respond, and it was actually fairly quick. I think I emailed him on Sunday. He responded on Monday. So it was very quick. But and his what I we have preached over and over that came through in his email, which is one reason I like him. I think is he was just authentic. He was kind of just himself. I didn't mention in my email I cussed because he cusses in his videos and stuff. I'm like, so I'm just like I'm just going to be myself and throw some cuss words in and all that
Mhm,
kind of stuff. And then he cussed in the response, which I
mhm,
I appreciated. But
mhm,
I told you he opened up with his wife takes shots at him for being internal medicine. But other than that, he kind of mentions that he appreciates because I linked our I put our Apple podcast link, thinking,
mhm.
man, maybe he'll listen
Give
5
it a look.
minutes or something.
Right.
So he says that he likes our authenticity, right?
Mm,
And he mentioned cussing specifically because
mm,
he said it added to our authenticity.
yeah.
So, but that response made me realize that he actually listened to at least some of one of our episodes. He wouldn't know that we cussed if he didn't listen to our either
Mhm,
our social media or our episode. So
yeah.
I thought that was, even though you're just giving the advice of just be yourself, is essentially what he's saying. He took the time to listen to the stuff that we put out so far.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting.
Which is meaningful. Like you appreciate, he's been doing this for a long time, and you can go back and look at his old videos of where he started out with
Yeah.
the bad sound
Yeah.
quality and things like that. And so for him to just take a couple minutes of his time to kind of give these nobodies like a
Hmm.
listen and say, hey, like I appreciate that you guys are authentic. I see that like, cussing is part of your language, or however you speak, or whatever
Hmm.
it is. Like just keep doing whatever you're doing, and like the grind, and like I appreciated all of it. So
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's very generic, but at least it takes the
mhm.
time. He took the time to listen, and he's like, yeah, just keep going, because he
Yeah.
goes on to mention that radiologists is a very niche audience, right? We're very cornered in what we do because not very many people do it or know about it. But then he goes. I'm assuming he's listened to other podcasts because he goes on to say that some of them they're kind of just like they say a lot without saying a lot, essentially. So he's like, you need to keep being authentic and being yourself and kind of saying things that maybe other people are thinking but they don't want to say out loud, because in the third paragraph he's like, you're gonna piss off some people, but he's like, why not do it now when nobody's listening? That
Mhm,
way you're just kind of used to it whenever
mhm,
you do get a following. So I thought that advice to me was maybe the most interesting part of the whole thing, because I never thought about
mhm.
that. Like we can say we haven't said anything terrible controversial, but he's like, that makes sense, like now's the time to do it because nobody's listening, or
Right.
very few people are listening, whatever. But
Right, right. Yeah, say what you want to say. People are gonna dislike you for your opinions.
hmm,
Everybody has opinions. Everybody's opinions are different
yeah.
from person to person, and like that's okay. Just say how you feel, say what you think, and find your crowd, find your audience that has similar opinions or wants to listen to a different opinion. And so it's
Yeah.
you know,
And I
it, it-
thought, at least for me, ultrasound is a little different. I think techs in general have a little bit more exposure on social media and stuff like that. So people are more aware of like a tech's personality and like things of that nature. Most people don't know a radiologist personality. If they do, they think we're just nerds that sit in like a dark room. Like, frankly, they just think we're nerds that sit in a dark room that love. I mean, we'll do a react video. Even his Bitmoji or
Yeah.
whatever the radiology emoji, he mentions we love electrons and protons and magnets. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what the average person thinks of us when it's just not completely, which is not true. Some people are like that, but I think the vast majority of us are just normal human beings that have, our own personalities. We're not defined by our jobs. So I think for me, part of doing what we do is at least letting people know, like, if I would never suggest it, but if you are interested in medicine and you want to do radiology, we're not these like quiet bookworm nerds that just sit in dark rooms. So
I mean, I know a lot. You've really been changing out your pocket protectors quite a bit, and
yeah, yeah,
trying
it's
to
yeah.
trying to
So
figure out. Yeah.
because I mean, even in medicine, like I said, techs have more exposure. Even in medicine, other doctors have more exposure. Everyone knows about surgeons. I think even internal medicine gets more exposure. OB is a really popular one on like social media, so that you get to see the lifestyle. And granted, our day-to-day job is not very interesting because we do sit at a computer for most of it. But I still think there are other aspects of a radiologist personality that people would enjoy. So that was a big factor for me in wanting to do, this podcast. Besides hating my job, that I wanted people to know that there are,
Mhm.
we have personality.
Right. And even in parts of ultrasound, everybody thinks that it's OB oriented, and so
Hmm.
a lot of people get into ultrasound just because they want to just do OB, and then you realize that there's a lot of aspects to it, and so yeah, okay.
So it's
Second.
good to it's good to just bring a little exposure.
Yeah.
And then the last part is kind of I mentioned in the podcast. So eventually we want to have guests or be guests on other shows. And
Hmm.
he's like, just make sure you carry the same energy. He's like, don't go on a different podcast and completely change who you are and what you say just because you're on a different podcast. He's like, the if you're authentic, people will appreciate it. Kind of like shameless plug here. I did a YouTube video for the Anthony Oliver song. Go check it out on our YouTube, rad_talk_DG. But I think
Rad reacts.
yeah, I called that Radiologist Reacts. But I think one of the reasons I said it was so popular is just because it was authentic, right? You could tell that it came from somewhere deep inside of him. So I
Hmm.
think he's kind of saying the same thing. People appreciate authenticity, especially in today's day and age where a lot of, people are fake, their bodies
Hmm.
are fake, personalities. I hope, there's just fake stuff everywhere. So I think people do appreciate a little bit of authenticity.
Hmm. Definitely, always, yeah, being real.
Yeah. So I think we have other lists, people we want to email, but I think that was a good one to start with him because he's an authentic dude.
Hmm.
He respond, even if I didn't think he would respond, he did respond. And it wasn't just like a generic templated email that he sends to everybody that responds. So I think overall, I'm glad that we
Hmm.
emailed him and he gave useful advice. We'll put his plug. Is it just ZDog MD?
Yeah,
That's
Z
what
Dog.
he is on.
I think he's across the board. Z Dog
Yeah,
MD.
Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. So go give him a follow.
Yeah, and his I think he has a separate I think it's like Doc Vader too. So if you're really into like funny humor, medical,
Yeah, I know
it's
Z Dog is his medical is the one where he does most of it. He also has a personal one where I think
that's good.
he gets a little bit more, I guess, authentic or one on one type of stuff.
Right.
So, but Z Dog MD is the one that I follow.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely. Yeah, I agree.
and then
And then on the other flip of the
yeah,
coin, uh,
yeah,
we were having issues. We tell you guys every week to look us up. We're Rad Talk. And we pop up everywhere Rad Talk is. Well, I started to realize that on Spotify we were not showing up as Rad Talk.
we've been
So
lying for fucking two
yeah,
months.
so I was like we show up, but you have to be like very specific. You had to type in Rad Talk, and you had to type in like Gage or Dennis or like something.
And not even that. If you type in Rad Talk, other shit pops up.
Yeah,
Like Raw Talk or
yeah,
there's nothing. It doesn't say there's one podcast above us that says Rad Talk.
yeah.
The
And,
rest
and
aren't even rad, and they're still showing up. I was like, this is bullshit. Like, what are they doing?
and we're gonna surpass that one above us. We're coming.
Easy, yeah.
But so yeah, so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna reach out to Spotify and just say, hey, like, I feel like if people type in Rad Talk, they're searching for us. Like, we should be one of the top folks. And They essentially told me that just like gain a bigger following or have people watch more of your stuff. And
Yeah.
it was kind of frustrating because it's like, well, how, I want people to watch more of our stuff, but if you type in our name and it doesn't show up,
Yeah.
people aren't gonna like, people don't want to just constantly take the extra step to, I feel like, okay, I'm gonna type in Red Talk with Dennis or whatever it is. Like
Yeah.
I should come up above Raw Gear or something that has nothing to do with Rad or
I
like
mean,
whatever.
everyone says a name's important. Like you have to know your audience. Like Rad Talk, that's easy. It's 2 words, 7 letters, easy. So the
Yeah,
fact then you have to add in with, and then one of our names. People are like, that's too
yeah,
much.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
the
And
fact that
speaking,
Spotify told us to like just get good, that's essentially what they told. That's the most elementary bullshit advice you could ever give some. We weren't even asking that.
yeah,
We
yeah,
wanted you to change it so we popped up appropriately. And you're
yeah,
like, yeah, get fucked, like here's our advice. Jesus Christ, Spotify, come on.
yeah. Well, and I've since I searched recently and we came up second. And so I don't know if they
So they
made some
listen.
sort of they don't know if they made some sort of a change or if
Yeah.
I just like got lucky this time and I searched for it and it came up. But if anybody continues to look us up and they can't find us, I guess let us know, and we'll continue to try to reach out to Spotify
We'll
and get
continue beating our heads against the wall with
that.
Spotify and
Try to keep, gonna try to get this bigger, or maybe just look us on Podbean or Apple if that's the case.
Apple's
Uh,
probably the easiest, I think. Yeah.
yeah,
Because we do pop up Rad Talk. I looked. So we do pop up Rad Talk. But
yeah,
yeah, so that's the two types of advice. One was
mhm,
good, actually useful, and the other one was like, well, you know what?
yep.
Not so useful. So
But and I think in the real world, that's sometimes the advice you get. Like they're just like, "Well, just be better," and you're
yeah,
like,
yeah,
"Okay." Like
yeah,
they're like, "How do you do that?" Just be better.
yeah.
Okay, and so that we'll take that advice and we're gonna
We're
just
gonna be better.
be better.
So when we're huge, we'll look back and say, thanks, Spotify, for telling
Thank you
us to
for
be better.
that. Definitely.
So
Um,
that's our experience with advice over the last 2 weeks.
yeah.
So if you're ever thinking about starting a podcast, just keep that in the memory bank there.
And
Those are the
remember,
two. Those are the two responses you're going to get, right? Either here's what you do, or mm, you
be
know,
better.
yep, be better.
Mhm.
So. All right, boys, as always, thanks for listening to another segment of Rad Talk. Remember, if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe as it helps the channel grow. Thanks.